This is the Alternative Leader Podcast with Mary Williams, inspiring the leaders of today, getting to the grit and discovering the gold with powerful insights and learnings, helping us to lead with strength, determination, and compassion.
Hi, my name is Mary Williams and I'm the Mind Architect, and welcome to the Alternative Leader Podcast. Today's guest is Connie Bramer, and Connie has a book called How Connie Got Her Rack Back. And it's a brilliant book because it's your story through breast cancer and how you came out the other side, but also about the organization that you founded, Get Your Rack Back, about how you now support other people going through that journey. And we were also just discussing that you're also co-author of a book called From Crappy to Happy and Clarity to
Chaos to Clarity.
Chaos to Clarity, which is people's stories sort of similar to this podcast. So lots of great things for listeners and watchers to go out and look at. But Connie, so tell us your journey, how you started, because I remember when we spoke a couple of years ago, because we met on LinkedIn, and you're incredible because you've taken your own challenge and you have just created this amazing sort of company charity where you help so many other people. I found it quite profoundly affected me when I listened to your story, just the change that you had been able to make. So I'm just launch in.
Well, I was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 39, just after my 39th birthday. And my kids were 7 and 8 at the time. And I'm actually the 4th generation in my family to have been diagnosed with breast cancer. And next month, I am going to be a 12-year survivor.
Wow.
So yeah, very excited about that. So I had, a long journey. I had 6 months of very intensive chemotherapy. I've had 13 breast cancer related surgeries, including bilateral mastectomies. Did not have radiation, but I had run the gamut on the chemotherapy. It was not an easy journey. So my kids were small, we made like picking out a wig a game, and it's kind of funny because I have pink in my hair right now for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And my daughter wanted me to get a pink wig. And then my son wanted me to get a green one. And I'm like, kids, just so you know, I have to come to school, like in this wig. So they're like, just get, blonde, mom, like you're blonde. So I tried to engage them and make it a game. And ironically, now I have pink hair. So they were just talking about this the other day, laughing about it. But, it was a journey. I had to involve my kids. Yeah. I kept them hidden from, or my illness hidden from them, as far as like the pain of my surgeries, my chemotherapy. I was newly divorced. And when I had my chemo, I would strategically have it so that the next day when you are ill, they would be at their father's. Right. So they didn't see the real toll it took on me. They just saw, mom slept a lot and we ate a lot of Stouffer's mac and cheese, because that was like the one thing. That was the one thing that we ate a lot of, because your palate changes when you have chemo, and there's a lot of things that you like to eat or taste good. So so I had a long journey, and the farther I get from it, Mary, like I have to go back to my book and actually look at what I went through, because I've just kind of put it behind me a lot, and I didn't realize it until I've actually been asked about it most recently, and I don't remember all the little details. So when I was finished, I had actually started a Caring Bridge website to share with my family and friends how I was doing throughout my journey. And I'm a very smart assy, smart aleck type of person. So all of my posts in there were all, kind of like, my snarky sense of humor coming out about what I was dealing with, So I'd just be like, my oncologist said after my chemo, he said, how'd it go? And I'm like, how'd it go? If I could have had that astronaut pill to end it all, if I got lost in space, I would have taken it, like no question. And he goes, astronauts have pills? I said, haven't you watched like Apollo 13 or anything? So I wrote about a lot of those things in my stories, and that was just my way to connect with people. And people write me back, and a lot of the comments that people wrote back were really funny. Like we just had this, I realized later that it was really my therapy. Yeah. My support group. So, just to tell another quick story, when I was well, almost well, I should say. I had my expanders and my brother came up from North Carolina. I'm obviously in the United States. And he came up and he goes, get dressed, we're going out. So we went out to eat and we were walking down a sidewalk with a bunch of other people in my family. And my wig got caught in a tree as I ducked under it, went like right off my head.
Gosh.
So I'm bald with a dress and heels, laughing in the street. And, I write about all kinds of things like that in my book. That's what it really was. So when I was done, when I was done with my journey, one of my girlfriends said to me, I think if you put all of your experiences in a book, it would really help people.
Yeah.
So I decided, I go, okay, I'm going to take a year and I'm going to write my book. And I would just write like an hour a day, or I tell my kids, unless you are bleeding or dying, do not interrupt me because I'm going to write for like 2 hours. You know how it is to write. Like absolutely. You're just like, do not talk to me unless you've cut your throat. You know what I mean? Like, just don't talk to me. So I wrote the book and then I decided, so I wrote the book and I wrote it for me. To put my journey in a box and bury it in the backyard. Like I just wanted to have like a cleansing of the experience. And it really didn't turn out that way. It turned out to be like this jumping off point for a deeper desire I had to pay my good fortune, my health forward, and the things that people had done for me forward for people. So I wrote the book. This is it right here. How Connie got her rack back. With a bra
I love that.
off.
For the people who aren't watching this on video, the book has a bra hanging off the front of it, which I think is just absolutely brilliant imagery.
Thank you. So that's the book. So then I decided to have a book launch party. So the book came out in 2012, February 2012. And I thought, I want to have like a book launch party to thank all my family and friends for sticking it out with me through this hellacious journey I've had. So I had a book launch party. I'm in business. My job during the day is I'm in the car business as a management consultant. So I know a lot of people in business. So I said, why don't we turn it into a fundraiser? So I started with raising money for other organizations like the American Cancer Society. And the first year we raised almost $5,000. Just, 100 people came. It was just kind of a really quickly put together thing. And it just got me thinking, I can do this again and again and again and help more people. So I did it for like 3 years and helped other organizations. And then in 2015, I said to myself, or actually 2014, I said, I've got to do something where we're helping people that we know. Like not necessarily that I would know you personally that are going through cancer, but if someone in my county in New York gave me money, it would go to a patient in that county. So my foundation is called Get Your Rack Back. We rebranded it, if you will, to GYRB because I don't want people thinking we only help breast cancer patients. We help all cancer patients, men, women, and children with varying types of cancers. We provide them each with $500 in assistance, and every patient gets different things. Most people ask for grocery gift cards. So we do grocery gift cards, gas gift cards, and medical copayment assistance. And the really crazy thing about this whole thing, Mary, is, my mom died of breast cancer in 1996 at 53. And when I did my paperwork to become a 501c3, you have no pull over what date they decide you are a nonprofit. And the date that the AG's office and the IRS decided was going to be my official start date, because they actually backdate it. Like the process goes on through the year, then they backdate it. It was backdated for my mother's birthday.
Wow.
Of all the days of the year.
That's incredible.
So I thought, I was like, this is a divine sign that this is going to do great things. So far we've helped almost 300 people, a lot of men, which people are surprised at.
Yes.
And we have a Christmas stocking drive that we've done. This will be our 5th. I'm hoping to do it with the pandemic. It's been a little crazy, but hoping to do it this December. And it is our Christmas stocking drive. And so far we have stuffed and delivered over 1,500 holiday stockings to kids who are affected by cancer. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, but it's just been so rewarding. I've met so many wonderful people and, truly people are so good at heart. It doesn't have to be money they donate, but time and effort. It's really been a wonderful experience.
Do you think do you think when you look at going through the pandemic, do you think that the pandemic has made people help more or help less? I'm just interested in how you viewed it.
That's a very interesting question, Mary, because I've had to cancel all of our fundraisers. So in October, we did very well. We had a few different things that were online. We had an online trivia night, and that went very well. But we have not been getting a lot of donations because we're all in a very iffy time.
Yeah.
So I did a birthday fundraiser because my birthday was in October, and my goal is always to raise money for 5 patients. And we did that. People, my friends really came through for me to do that. So that's 5 people, but normally my gala, which I was supposed to have held in May this year, normally it's June, but it's going to be May. We normally net 25,000, which helps 50 cancer patients. So our numbers are extremely off. And my foundation is not the only one, but we are, volunteers. We're not paid. So, when you give us money, it goes right back out the door to a patient. So, I always tell people, and it doesn't have to be my foundation, but find a foundation that is grassroots. That's boots on the ground where you live, because they're going through a different type of struggle than, and I don't want to name names, but a bigger, national foundation, you know what I mean? Without paid staff and advertising, etc. So it has been a very, very challenging time. And I am concerned about my stocking drive. We've got to figure out how to do that. And the other part of it too is we usually have 50 or 60 people assisting with it.
Yes, of course.
It's like a machine. It's like a well-oiled machine of people going from one area to the next. It's almost like a little Santa's helper, elf situation going on.
Yeah.
So I'm concerned about that, but I'm going to muddle through. And because those kids, those families count on those things.
Yeah.
The whole problem is COVID doesn't care about cancer.
No.
So people are still being diagnosed. People are still in dire straits and need help. And we help people. We don't just give out money to anyone. So how it works is the nurse navigators or social workers at different oncology offices fill out paperwork, like an online thing. And they send me information about the patient, their diagnosis, a little bit about their family situation. And they're all people that they have deemed to be like on the edge, because one of the things that has hurt me tremendously as a foundation and getting grants is that I don't require financial statements from patients.
Yes.
Because if I, if 12 years ago when I was diagnosed, if someone said, you know what, Connie, I can get you $500 in grocery gift cards, but can you give me your last year's tax statement and your 2 most recent pay stubs? I'd be like, I'll figure it out.
I've got bigger stuff.
Right. I got bigger fish to fry. So that has kind of hurt me a little bit in getting grants, but I don't want to deviate from my system at this point, because I'm relying on these doctors, nurses, and social workers to ferret out who are the people who really need it. So we help people who are on the edge, because so often people are having to choose between paying for their treatment and putting food on the table for their families. And we can't live in a world where that is going on. So I knew when I started my foundation, I wasn't going to solve the issue of cancer, but I knew that we could help people one patient at a time. And that's what we're doing. Thank you for allowing me to talk about it, because it's just really near and dear to my heart, my foundation.
I think it's amazing. And I think sometimes people get stumped wanting to start something because they think I only have this amount of time, or maybe even I could only help one person a week, but they don't realize that actually if everybody reached out and helped one person a week, how much it would happen. And I think my eldest daughter works in a hospice here, and I know they've taken an absolutely huge hit on fundraising, because like you say, actually once you cancel fundraising for things that are supported by fundraising, where does the money come from? And also everybody is tightening their belts. And I know my daughter manages, I think it's something like 800 volunteers for that hospice, and actually if they didn't have all of those people helping, it wouldn't be able to function. And I think I can't remember, but I know that she was telling me the statistic of the amount of money and time and wealth that volunteers across all sectors bring into the country. And it was huge. If you took it away, the country wouldn't function. And I think people forget that actually you can do, it could be just one person. And I remember an ex-partner of mine, his grandmother was, I think, 83, and she had what she called her old lady that she would go and help once a week, who was in her 90s. And I think, so one of the things, the reason I was asking about the pandemic is, so I live in a village just outside Cambridge. I'm about 4 kilometers out of Cambridge, and it is quite a community-based village. But what I noticed was that during the pandemic, people were obviously sorting through their cupboards and having big clear outs where they were in lockdown, and just putting things out on the street for free. And we have a lot of fruit trees and fruit bushes. So quite often you walk past and people put apples. And it was interesting. There was a switch from people doing that and trying to sell it previously to, over the lockdown, just giving it away and giving fruit away. And so I was interested in whether you had found that people were coming forward more or less. So is there something around it being a financial give rather than a goods give that makes people generous or not so generous? It's an interesting thing, isn't it?
It is a very interesting thing, but I do think a lot of it for my foundation has been around the fact of not having fundraisers. Because when I've done stuff, like I did stuff in October, people donate.
Yeah.
But I waited all that time because like, one of the reasons why I canceled my golf tournament, tournament really thrives. Both my gala and my golf tournament thrive on business sponsorship. And I did not feel right asking businesses to donate when they were all struggling. They were shuttered or, like, especially, my industry is the car is an industry for my job. Car dealers were shut down for a time. So I couldn't ask them and say, hey, do you want to sponsor my golf tournament? Because they're going to be like, girlfriend, listen up. We are just, we're just getting started. We're getting back to normal. Like we don't have extra funds. So that was really my mindset in not doing the golf tournament. And the other thing was I couldn't have been able to have like a gathering of people for a luncheon either. Every state in my country has different rules. So I'm in New York. And we have very strict rules. You can't have more than 50 people in a gathering, of any kind. So people have had to postpone their weddings. But if you go to Pennsylvania, which is a bordering state to New York, you can have 250 people. So there's a lot of, different situations going on. So it's been a real departure for me to go to online venues. So, the trivia night went well, and now we're going to have our event in December online, and that's going to be a real tell, like how that one works, because that's huge.
It's hard, isn't it? The whole online thing, and I think now everybody's working online as well. People are they're less willing to come online for other things too. It's kind of, just want to get to the end of the day, go offline, really.
Right.
But I do wonder whether the kind of one of the lessons that we've learned is how important people are and how important our social relationships are, our friendships, our families. I hope that is something that people are taking away from it.
I think so. Well, one of the things that has come of my situation is both of my kids are in college and they're both home studying remotely. So 19 and 20 years old, how often can you say at that age you spent almost 24/7 with your mother?
How often do you want to?
Well, how often do you want to, right? So I know my daughter absolutely has to go back in the spring. She's a nursing student. She has to go back. My son may not. He may decide to stay home still because they're so strict on these college campuses. They're not having the true college experience. That's one issue. And plus, as a parent or a child who's paying your way, do you want to spend that kind of money to sit in your room? I mean, I made a joke to my kids. I go, at least when you're in prison, you get like an hour a daylight, because they have to eat in their room, take their classes in their room, sleep in their room. And if you have an annoying roommate, like, what are you going to do with yourself?
It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, both of my boys actually live in Liverpool, which in England is pretty much one of the highest COVID places. One's at university and one's just living there. I mean, my eldest son, I've seen him once since Christmas. When he came home.
That's gotta be really hard.
And it is, and it's I think as a mother you kind of want to bring, you want to bring them home, but I said to them, you need to do what's right for you, and if staying, with your friends and being there is fine, then stay there. But I think it's a really interesting thing, and I think we're going to see a lot of books. A lot of people's books coming out. A lot of people have written. Somebody was telling me it's something like 500 times the amount of books that we are publishing in September are going to be publishing.
I'm
so
sure
many people have. But to change complete track, if that's all right with you, I would really like to just talk a little bit about your personal journey through it, because I mean, you said you were newly divorced and you're a mum of young kids. I mean, how does that profoundly affect you when you get that diagnosis, especially given that there's been loss within your family previously? So were you aware that you had that sort of, is it genetics within your family?
I still have not had the gene done yet.
Right.
I still need to check out whether or not I have the gene, because I have to get my daughter tested. I always felt like I might get it. And I know that sounds weird. I didn't live in a space where I'm like, oh my God, it's coming. Because that just, I really believe in the power of positive thought, and what you think about, you bring about, good or bad. And my mom had said to me years ago, because she was diagnosed when I was in college, I was 19. And she said, I've always been waiting for this day. Right. I didn't want to say that out loud. Okay. But when I went, so my mom was diagnosed at 46. So my grandmother was diagnosed at 52, died at 54. My great grandmother, I think, was diagnosed at 60 and died at 61, something in that. I don't really remember that part, but it's been progressively getting lower in age, right? If you follow the path. So when I was diagnosed, I'm like, what? Like, I wasn't expecting it. I had just literally had my 39th birthday.
Right.
So I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I was shocked. So when she told me, because I was diagnosed off of an ultrasound.
Right.
And I went in and the radiologist came in and everyone's quiet, which that's not good. And she goes, I'm 99% sure this is breast cancer. And my reaction was this: shut up. Like, that's exactly what I said. Shut up. I got in the car in like a daze, and I drove home, and I thought, I gotta be the 1%. I gotta be the 1%. Well, I wasn't. And then it just became a point of just getting through. Like, I don't think I ever really wallowed in it. I think everyone has a different personality, obviously. That's what makes the world go round. But that's what makes people interesting.
Absolutely.
Right? That's why we have podcasts.
Absolutely.
So, I really am a person that just says, okay, what is the next step? My daughter almost died of sepsis last year. Was in the hospital for a week, very ill. I never got I didn't cry about it. I was like, all right, what's next? Like, what can we do to get her better? Like, I'm just that kind of a person about any problem I face. So I only allowed myself 5-minute pity parties, and I didn't have them often. I think the thing that really helped me a lot, that I taught to all the cancer patients my foundation helps, is having a gratitude journal. Yeah. That helped me immensely, because every night before I went to bed, I wrote down 3 things I was grateful for that day. I mean, one day it was like, woke up, didn't puke all day, had milk for the kids for their cereal. So you can go from the simple and mundane to like the really like poignant, I'm so grateful for my family, and like all these different things. But it put me in a place of thinking in the life of gratitude. Yeah. That got me through. People always ask me, how did you get through it? And I'm like, I laughed at just about everything, which if you read my book, you'll know that I laughed at everything. I made fun of everything. I made fun of myself. But the gratitude journal was really a key element for me. And I recommend that for everyone, especially now with this pandemic, because we're all in this like weird state. Yeah. I can't pinpoint it because I'm not a depressive person. I am really a happy-go-lucky Pollyanna kind of girl. And I miss like hugging my friends. I miss
Yes, me
seeing my
too.
friends. I've been very cautious. I have asthma. I, have an autoimmune disease that's really bizarre with my gums from my chemotherapy. I
Right.
had chemotherapy. My oncologist, I had my yearly checkup recently, and he's like, listen, my checkup was very good, by the way, so knock on wood. And he said, be really cautious with the whole COVID thing. So I've been very cautious. So I've only seen a few friends, and we've all decided like we're just seeing each other to do things.
Yes.
Because most of us obviously are all working from home now. I do go out into car dealerships in New York. So I am going out, but I'm very careful. But it's just changed our way of life. And I think even when it's all lifted, I think you're still going to see this change in people's, trepidation towards doing things and going places. I don't think it's going to be this massive free for all. Like it's all going to be lifted and we're all going to be in Naples, Italy. You know what I mean? Although I want to go there.
I totally agree, and I think it will fundamentally change the way that humans interact with each other. And like you, I'm an incredibly touchy-feely person.
Yeah.
I'm always putting my hand on somebody. I mean, I often joke that if I was a man, I'd get in a lot more trouble.
Yeah.
Because
Probably you would.
I'm always touching people. But I remember feeling almost like a withdrawal of that the first couple of months of lockdown. It was a kind of and I remember my daughter's birthday. She was 30 at the end of May, and I hadn't been able to give her a hug or anything. I hadn't even seen her. And she'd come over for my birthday, which was early May, but, sat at the end of the garden, and we'd kind of put a plate on the floor, walked away from it, And for her 30th, I just thought, I'm just not hugging my child. And so I got this huge sheet of plastic, something I'd seen on the internet, and I cut 4 holes in it and put rubber gloves either way. And then I hung it on the washing line. And so when she came over, I kind of put my arms through, and she put hers, and we had this hug through this kind of huge, thick, enormous sheet of plastic.
Well, that's pretty ingenious.
Well, I totally stole the idea from the internet. But it was, that was the last time I hugged her, was end of May. And it's so hard to kind of watch your children going through stuff, and you can't touch them. But I miss my friends, and I miss parties, and I miss dinner parties, and I miss just being with humans. And it was quite funny. My boiler broke down yesterday, and the plumber came out to mend it. And he was really just really chatty and really friendly. And when he'd gone, I realized that I was kind of in this kind of bubbly mood. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm actually just really happy from seeing this really other human being who's also in a really bubbly, good mood. And it just made me realize how those tiny daily interactions that we have with people, they are so important to us. And my fear almost is that we will get the other side of the pandemic and we won't go back to having those nice interactions with each other. And I think the pandemic's going to last. I think it's a few years of this before we work out how to do it, or it goes through us, or whatever the outcome is. And I'm like you, I'm kind of going, what's the state of that going to be by the end of it? I think people would automatically, stand back and stand away from each other. So it's interesting, isn't it? How will it affect the human race forever?
It is. And what's interesting to me in business is not shaking people's hands.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like,
yeah.
When you're growing up as a kid, even my kids, I'm like, look, you look people in the eye and you give a strong handshake.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like, when they were 6, 7 years old, I'm like, that's what you do.
Yeah.
So now to say, oh, we're going to just erase it and do like the Japanese knot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What are we doing? How are we greeting people? We just feel we're like, hey, and we do the air thing. It's just very odd to me. So I part of me has hope for humanity that will go back to some level of social being.
Yes.
I almost said socialism. Yes. Social being.
Yeah.
But it makes me sad that we're in this place, but we have to do what we have to do to protect ourselves and protect our families. And you've been through COVID. I've had a lot of people, I have a family I know of that the entire family had COVID and the father died.
Gosh.
So it's, you know, it's really scary.
I think it is. And I mean, I think, you know, I definitely, I mean, sort of undiagnosed, but I'm pretty sure it's possibly affected my heart and lungs. And I think, you know, and I had it really mildly. And I think that, you know, we do have to look at the sort of, I'm sort of part of me just thinks, well, we need to go out and just get on with our lives because it's going to go through us anyway. And the other part of me goes, no, we need to protect everybody. Don't go anywhere. And I just oscillate between these two viewpoints. And so I kind
we're never going to know like the true effects of this.
No.
You know, like I have a friend who was very ill, who was the first person in my area to be intubated and had to go to rehab to learn how to eat, walk, and talk again. And now she just, I think after 4 months, just graduated to a cane.
Yeah.
So she's having all these major health issues. My brother in another state had it. He's still struggling. He's like, I'm exhausted all the time.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? We kind of look at it and sort of say, well, you know, these people are dying, these people aren't. And it's, but what about all the other people in between who, you know, who might be left with long-term illnesses? But coming back to sort of long-term illnesses, how do you feel? I mean, do you feel that you're still worried about it returning, or have you just, is that you're on your kind of, well, you know, if it does, it does, and I'll deal with it then?
No. And I can't live in that state of fear. And I speak to cancer patients about that a lot. You know, we have to live in each day. And I also think that this COVID situation, coupled like with the thought process of patients who are going through major illnesses, is that we have to live more in the moment.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, and so I don't think about it. The only time I think about it is when I go to the oncologist for my annual appointment, because I graduated to annual appointments about 3 years ago.
Right.
So the night before I lay in bed, I'm like, oh my God, I got to walk in there. So I cannot even go in the elevator. If you've had chemotherapy, it's like having a hard night of drinking where the next day, like alcohol permeates through your skin, like that smell. You're like, holy crap, what did you do last night? You know what I mean? Chemo, when you've had chemo, you know that smell. You know, you wouldn't know it if you didn't have it, but like you would know the smell. In the elevator at my doctor's office, you smell that because people are coming down the elevator. I can't take the elevator. I got to do the stairs. So I run up 3 flights of stairs and I'm like, I'm here, you know, and then I get my blood work done. And then it's gotten so it's quite speedy now. So my oncologist texts me like at the end of the day, that day. I'm like, so I even messaged him like, how'd it go? Like, did you get my results? He goes, yes. Like, so my tumor marker was like 12.14 on a scale of 33. So if you're beyond 33, it's worrisome.
Okay.
And mine has been normally like 17, 19 in that range. And now it was 12. I was like, this is good stuff.
That's really good.
So everything was good. So then I put it in a box away for another year. And that's something that, you know, I was talking to Dr. Bernie Siegel. I had him on my podcast because he's in this book, Crappy to Happy, that I'm in. And he has a book called Living Between Office Visits. And we talked about just what you're talking about. How do you live between seeing your doctor? You know, your doctor either sets your mind at ease or makes you worry about something.
Yeah.
It's like there's nothing in between, right? There really isn't.
Yeah.
So you go and you either feel okay, oh my God, I'm good, or like, what is the next step? So what he was talking about was how do you live in between those appointments? And I thought that was really like, it was great advice what he talked about, you know, having to put it away. You know, you have to put it away. And I've learned that. And I think we also have to kind of learn it with the COVID thing. We've got to put away the trials and tribulations we're going through and just make sure we're just getting through the day. I think getting through the day has become a new staple tagline for what we're dealing with right now. You know, one of my friends is a teacher. She came over the other night and I said, would you like a glass of wine? And I really don't drink much. And we polished off an entire bottle of wine, the two of us. And you know, she's like, of course I need a glass of wine because teaching has changed. Our kids' experience have changed. And thank God I don't have 2 little kids anymore. You know, they're doing their own thing. So if I was dealing with 2 little kids and having to work a job and do homeschool, I mean, my head would just pop off.
I have to say, my brother has two little ones there. I think 3 and about 5. You know, that sort of age, and busy kids. And every time that I felt I was struggling with mine, who are kind of 14 and 16, I would just think, I'm not with those two. And I love them. I mean, I love them dearly. But hats off to all of the parents who had little kids at home.
I know.
Because, you know, even just being able to go and sit at the end of the garden in the kind of shed, you know, or just sit outside for 5 minutes away from everybody. And I think for me, you know, it wasn't too bad lockdown because I worked from home anyway. You know, it wasn't a massive difference. And actually it was summer and it was quiet, and my mum had died at Christmas. And so it was just actually having a quiet time.
Sorry.
It was quite good. And so actually, but I kept thinking, what about all the people at home? But then it was funny because near the end of lockdown, I slightly reversed, because I thought, you know, when they're teenagers, you can't tell them what to do, and you can't say, you know, we're going to do this today. And actually, you know, in some respects, part of me thought maybe it would be easier to have a 3-year-old that I could say, we're going to go paint in the garden. They'd be really excited. Rather than that teenage kind of grumpiness that you get now. But I think it's actually, you know, just really incredible, your story. And I want to ask you kind of 3 questions I ask everybody who comes on the podcast. And you've kind of covered some of this, but just to kind of be really clear. So the first thing is, looking back at going through that whole challenge that you went through, and it seems flippant, but was there a book, a film, or a piece of music that helped you through it? Was there something that you latched onto that's particularly sentimental to you now?
No, that's a really good question, but I don't think so. I mean, whenever I feel like I got to get my mojo back, I listen to Back in Black by AC/DC. So I've always done that. Like whenever I have a speaking engagement,
that's your song,
you know, so it's my jam, you know. But really, no, I don't think so. I mean, I watched a lot of the show House. You know, the medical. I watched a lot of that. Yeah. Like that was all I watched. Yeah. So yeah. So that was one thing. And the one thing that really gave me humor that I needed is I watched the Ellen DeGeneres show every day.
Yes.
That was funny. Like, because I would work from home and I would shut my computer down at 4:00 at my time, and I would watch her show. And that was something that gave me a lot of peace, and it was good to just laugh. So that would be one thing.
Laughter, you know, they say laughter's the best medicine. And I think for so many things it changes our state, doesn't it? And how we feel about ourselves. So my second question to you is, people that are listening to you today may be going through a challenge, maybe not cancer, maybe something else, maybe just struggling in the pandemic. What's your takeaway advice of something, the way they can think, something they can do right now today that might help?
The one thing I would say is what I had said earlier, is keep a gratitude journal. I think that helps, you know, and it helps to look back on what you were grateful for the day before, the week before, the month before, to see how you've progressed in your gratitude. Also, just to breathe through tough times. Like when I have a moment that I'm like, I'm going to lose my mind right now. I almost said the SHIT word, but I said, if I'm going to lose it, like I got to just take a breath. I got to take a 10-minute break or a 5-minute break, breathe, listen to quiet music, listen to something that is peaceful to me and serene. One thing that's been helping me a lot actually with meditation, and I suck at that. You know the movie and the book Eat, Pray, Love, and she's like in the ashram, and she'd be like, oh my God, like I have to do this and this and this. That would be me. Like I the little Allie would be like, oh my God, everyone's quiet and I'm the only one. Am I the only one that's thinking what's happening? Like I would be like one of those people.
I totally associated with that part of the book.
Yeah. Oh, me too. But what a great book that is too, by the way.
Yeah.
I've been listening to Rain on it's an app called Rain.
Yes.
Healthy with sleeping, but you know, there's one thing that's been helping me a lot is imagery with places that meant something to me. So I listened to the Rain app, and I am brought back to my old enclosed porch at my house growing up, because my parents, we moved when I was 15 to my parents' dream home they built, but it was like old. My parents moved into a camp because we had a man-made lake where we lived, and they had moved all of the camps away from the lake, you know, because they were like where the lake was dug. And so my parents' house was a camp. that they turned into a home and put additions on, and so it was like old, but we had this really serene place that was this enclosed porch. And I imagine myself sitting on the little couch in there, and it had a tin roof. And I play the rain that makes me think of sitting there and like the smell and how I felt safe because I was young and a kid. My parents were caring for me, and like my favorite dog was there when I was growing up, and like all those things. So even if you take, that's been helping me a lot lately. It's a really crazy
Very
thing
powerful.
but to find some serenity, that helps a lot too.
That's lovely. Okay. My third one is, if you were standing in front of the world leaders, this is a big one for you right now.
Yeah, no shit.
I was just thinking, I'm just remembering who I'm asking this to.
Yes.
If you were standing in front of world leaders, plural, what would be your message to them?
Wow, you are really putting me on the spot.
I know, because I didn't actually warn you. Normally I warn guests, and I didn't warn you. So I tell all the listeners, I didn't actually warn Connie I was going to ask her these questions.
If I can swear, can I say something?
You can swear.
I would be like, you know what? Can you people just cut out the bullshit and break it down to what people want to talk about and what people want to learn? Because it's been very frustrating. It's been very frustrating. And I think for my country, this has added another like acid cloud over the black cloud that is pandemic. It's like in our country right now. And I mean, I love my country, but in my country right now, if you were to look at all the things that we're going through in terms of like a sky. Okay. So like the pandemic is this huge fog that's over everything. Politics, acid rain on top of it. And then above that is this humongous ass alien spacecraft that's blocking out all the light. Like that's how it feels right now. So hopefully for us in the US, things will get better. The election will go through fine. And then, we'll figure out this pandemic thing. In 2021, I think on New Year's Eve 2020, there's going to be a lot of drunk people.
I think so too. That's brilliant. Connie, thanks so much. It's so lovely to catch up with you, because I often think about you.
Thank you.
Let's keep in touch more. And so if people have heard your story and they do want to donate, they want to get involved, how do they find you?
So you can go to my website, which is gyrb.org. Oh my God, what am I saying? You have to laugh at it. gyrb.org. I'm having a day today. And then to see my podcast or learn more about my podcast, I have a podcast called Laughter and Inspiration, because I feel that, especially right now, we need to have some laughter and feel inspired by different people. Like you inspire me, like you were a guest on it. We have a lot of really interesting guests. You can find that on my free group on Facebook called Laughter and Inspiration. You join the group, and then you can see all my podcast information in there. And we have like a funny little group in there where we post, funny memes and inspiring things, little escape from life. So Brilliant. Check that out.
Okay. So Laughter and Inspiration is the free group on Facebook, and then gyrb.org.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Wow.
Okay. Connie, thanks so much for coming on. I've really appreciated it. And I always love hearing your story. And I think just the way that you went through that challenge, just keeping that kind of positive head on. And like you said, that one step at a time, so incredibly important to keep that. And so important for everybody now. Such a good lesson for how to deal with it now. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank
you. Good to see you.
You too.
Bye.
Take care. Hi, I'm Mary Williams, as you know, and thank you so much for listening to the Alternative Leader podcast. I search for guests to bring you lessons and learnings that can help move you forward in your life, help you achieve the success that you want to, in whatever way that shows up for you, to help you lead powerfully, whether that's in your own life, as your parenting, your personal, or your professional, and make you the best that you can be. If you've enjoyed the show, please rate and review it, and please share it with as many people as you think also want to move forward and gain success in their lives. If you want to find out more about me, go over to my website, which is www.mary-williams.com. That's www.mary, which is MARI-Williams.com, and you'll find links to all of my social media profiles there. There's also a Facebook community that you can join. And again, all the links will be on the website too. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day. And thank you so much for listening.